All right. I will call the meeting to order. This is the Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, July 28th, 2020. First agenda item is roll call.
Miller?
Here.
Rosado? Beck?
Here.
Knopp? Knopp? Chanzit?
Here.
Barron?
Here.
Wolf?
Here.
O'Brien?
Here.
Callahan?
Here.
Meitzler?
Here.
Malay?
Here.
Ewer?
Here.
Cerrone?
Here.
And McFadden?
Here.
Knopp?
I don't know if he's going to be here tonight.
13 out of 14.
13 out of 14. Thank you. Okay, next up would be a reminder to speak directly into the microphone for the BATV recording. If you come up and use the microphone here or anybody else and everybody on the phone, make sure you speak up tonight. Okay, next up would be approval of the minutes for June 30th, 2020. Anybody have any corrections or anything? Get a motion?
So moved.
Motion by O'Brien, second by Janzit. Roll call.
O'Brien?
Aye.
Callahan?
Aye.
Meitzler?
Aye.
Malay? Malay? Ewer?
Aye.
Cerrone?
Aye.
McFadden?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Rosado?
Aye.
Beck?
Aye.
Knopp? Chanzit?
Aye.
Barron?
Aye.
And Wolf?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if we got Tony ever came back on or not. That would
Do you-
be 12.
do you want me to- See, Malay, are you still in attendance?
I'm trying to.
Are you a yay or nay on the vote to approve the minutes from June
Aye.
30th? Perfect, thank you.
All right, so that's at 13. Okay, item number 4 is items to be removed, added, or changed. Do we have anything this evening? Okay. Move right on to matters from the public for items that are not on the agenda. Is anybody here for anything not on the agenda? Okay. Go right to the consent agenda. Alderman Chancet.
Your Honor, there's just one item. It's Resolution 20-93-R. It's a housekeeping item regarding a contract authorizing a $0 change contract and amendment for the Main Street reconstruction design contract that was awarded to Civil Tech through Resolution 17-49-R. I would move that we approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Motion by Chanzit, second by Beck. Roll call, please.
Chanzit?
Aye.
Barron?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
O'Brien?
Aye. Excuse me, aye.
Callahan?
Aye.
Meitzler?
Aye.
Malay?
Aye.
Ewer?
Aye.
Cerrone?
Aye.
McFadden?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Rosado?
Aye.
Beck?
Aye.
And Knopp? Motion carried.
So 13-1 on that. All right. Next up is a presentation by Mask Up Batavia Sign Initiative. Sandra Miller. Welcome. Use the microphone right in the middle there.
Oh, she'd like to sit next to me.
Okay, sure. That's fine.
Papers down on the desk.
That's not a problem.
Good evening. Am I okay with volume?
Yep, just pull the mic up towards you a little bit. Perfect.
My name's Sandy Miller, and I'm here tonight with my husband Howard Miller and our good friends, Dr. Sue Sokolinski and her husband Tom Sokolinski. First of all, I'd just like to thank Laura and Mayor Shelkey for the invitation to come here tonight. I'd like to thank the City Council and the other elected officers who are here for their time and for listening to our ideas tonight. And I also, as an aside, just want to say a word of appreciation to all of you for your public service and for the place of caring from which that comes. We know this job is probably not always easy and certainly probably not glamorous. So thank you very much for what you do on behalf of our community. So now to our purpose for being here. This idea was born out of a discussion that Tom, Sue, and Howard and I were having one Sunday evening. And it was around the reality that our children were going to be going, or our children, our grandchildren, our friends, who are former teachers and former colleagues, we're going to be going back to school soon. And this got us to thinking that we wondered if there was something we might be able to do to make their return to school a little safer and a little easier for them. And as you may know, Howard, Sue, and I are all former educators, now retired in this district. So this is kind of a subject that's near and dear to our hearts. And like many of you, the other subject that's been near and dear to our hearts recently has been the COVID-19 virus and its effect on all of our community. So what we knew from keeping abreast with the information that was coming out about COVID-19 and its transmission was that when people wear masks in a community, and they do it with intensity and good universality, the transmission of the virus goes down. So we started to talk about, wouldn't it be great if we could do something that would encourage more masking in the community? And so we're bantering things around, and we said, well, we've seen those signs that say slow down. Why wouldn't it be great if we had some signs that said mask up? So that's how the idea was born. And we agreed that maybe we could do something about these signs. And we realized the more that we talked about this, that it had the potential to be kind of a movement in the community. Maybe signs would encourage people to do something proactive in terms of trying to prevent the spread of the virus. And definitely, it would not only benefit our children and grandchildren, our friends, our colleagues who will be going back to school and being asked to wear masks, but it could well benefit the whole community because it could help lower the transmission in Batavia. We also knew that in Batavia, we have some caring people here. They've been historically caring and consistently caring. And we had an inkling that Batavians would respond to something positive, like signage that would encourage them to mask up. So to that end, Howard and Tom and Sue and I have committed to paying for the creation of 100 signs to be distributed throughout the community. We're pretty sure we can get neighbors, friends, family members to put those signs out for us as a way of encouraging the Batavia community to mask up. I want to be clear that we're not seeking any public funds for this initiative, nor are we seeking a sanctioning of our initiative. I think we've all seen signs throughout the community in recent months that have asked us to slow down, for example, or thanked essential workers and healthcare workers for their service. So there's lots of inspiring signs that we've been seeing recently. We hope this adds to that positive feeling. So we regard this as a private effort for the public good. And the example of our sign, our first example of our sign is that Sue Sokolinsky, Dr. Sokolinsky, has been in contact with Batavia Public Schools, and she's going to talk to you about how our idea intersects with her idea. And after that, we'll be happy to take any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you.
I also want to thank everyone here for the work you do for our community. As Sandy stated, Sandy Hauer and I are all retired educators, and for us, like the vast majority, if not all of our colleagues, past and present, it's more than a job for us. We care very, very deeply about our the Batavia staff, both teachers, custodians, paraprofessionals, administrators, most of all, our students, because they are the future of our town. I reached out to Lisa Hitchens because Sandy Howard, Tom, and I were having conversations about where we could place these signs so that they would have the greatest effect in terms of getting people to think about safety and how a mask may probably, according to the research that we've read, will decrease the transmission of the virus. I reached out to Lisa and she got back to me immediately, and I think her opening statement was, great minds think alike. We've already started working on signs for our schools, but I'd like to talk to you about how maybe we can partner. She put me in touch with an old friend and colleague of, I know yours, Mayor Shelkey, Holly Deachman. So then I had a conversation with Holly, and I said, well, we would be really happy to support you or collaborate with you. So what we came up with, and you see their rendition on the bottom right hand of the screen, our bulldog with the face covering. So we thought, well, wouldn't it be great for us to use that bulldog, okay? So that gives us a commonality. The school district is using this signage, we're going to use this signage, and then we really thought hard to just two little words, mask up. Okay, having been an elementary educator for many years, I know this, if you want to get something across to young children, doesn't work. As few words as possible. So we started thinking, okay, that could be really doable, even for the youngest child. Mask up, and then we thought, oh, we could even modify it, alter it for each school. Mask up gators, mask up prairie dogs, to make it really meaningful for the kids in the schools. And so we would have that common language, and then it would also give adults a way to have some conversations that can be difficult. I was in a local business a couple nights ago, and one of the people working there wasn't masked, and so I said, I don't mean to be rude, but would you please put your mask up? And, you know, the conversation didn't go as well as I hoped it would, but I think if I would have had those two little words, and other people were using them, mask up, that maybe it would have, my message would have been more palatable. So we are going, you will see the signs when we get them produced, not only around in the neighborhoods, but you'll also see them on every one of the school building grounds as well as downtown at RJAC. So we wanted to let you know that we are collaborating with Batavia schools, which I think is a good thing. With that, are there any questions, or is there anything we can clarify or elaborate on for you?
Anybody have any questions?
I would take a sign, put it in my yard,
Thank you so
and,
much.
and I, yes.
I'll take one too.
Oh, good. We'll make sure and get them down here for you. Thank you.
I appreciate your efforts. It's important that people start to listen and follow through. And so I appreciate your efforts to put it on the front burner and keep it going. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for having us tonight.
And at City Hall, I would be happy to accept the signs, and we'll make sure to distribute them to the aldermen who wish to display them in their yard, and we'd love to put one at the entrance of City Hall as well.
Thank you. I wish you could see my smile.
See it in your eyes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me. The city of Batavia has purchased a stock of medical masks. In fact, we purchased 28,000 masks. In the month of May, we had a distribution event where we gave away about 1,000 of those masks, primarily to seniors in our community, people who were having trouble obtaining masks of their own. If there are still members of the community who have trouble obtaining masks of their own, they can come to City Hall, and we will provide them with a mask, and as many for each one of their family members. These paper medical masks can be reused. You know, if they are being used for an 8-hour shift for work, yeah, that's probably the limit of it. It should be disposed of, and a new one should be used for another shift. But if it's just merely for running errands around town, going to the grocery store, then the mask can be used for several uses. So if anybody's having trouble obtaining masks, feel free to ask here at City Hall. We also have a bin in our vestibule, the police entrance, and there, members of our community continue to make masks for people who can't get masks themselves. And so I noticed that there are still a few dozen in there today, and we appreciate members of our community who are so generous that they are making masks for people that they don't even know. So I'd like to thank the mask makers out there as well. And then lastly, our Batavia Community Cares program. You can call City Hall, and for seniors and disabled members of our community, we'll bring masks to you if you need them. So simply call City Hall and let them know through the Community Cares program that you need masks, and we'll get those to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on to item number 8, ordinance 20-48, an ordinance authorizing and providing for the issue of not to exceed $1 million in waterworks revenue bonds for the city of Batavia, Canaan DuPage County, Illinois, for the purposes of paying the cost of necessary improvements to the waterworks system of said city, prescribing all the details of said bonds, and providing for the collection, segregation, and distribution of revenues of said system for the payments of said bonds. Alderman Jansen?
Yeah, Your Honor, actually, I wanted to see if we could present items 8, 9, and 10 together. They are related to each other. All of them drawn up, prepared by our bond counsel to authorize issuance of bonds. 48 covers $1 million in waterworks revenue bonds. 49 covers $2.5 million in sewer revenue bonds, for a total of about $3.35 million. Ordinance 20-50 is an additional $4 million, but that's gold bonds, general obligation bonds, and that covers the wastewater treatment plant and some water mains. And Peggy is here if anybody has any additional questions regarding the issuance of these bonds. Did I leave anything out?
Oh, I can turn it on.
Good evening. The only thing I would like to point out is the 2.35 million was the maximum amount of the sewer bonds, and it does include 900,000 from 2019. And the bid for this year is about 1 million. So it's probably going to be a total of 1.9 million.
Got it.
It's on a reimbursement basis based on the cost of construction. So we try to estimate what the maximum will be. The same for the water bond. However, the 4 million for the general obligation bonds will be $4 million.
And for those that haven't been through this round yet, the difference between the bonds, the revenue bonds specifically come from the revenues of those utilities. General obligation is from the general fund.
That is correct. However, we can use utility revenues to repay the bonds, which is what we will be doing in this case. We are issuing them as general obligation bonds to save on interest costs. Because it's the full obligation of the city, you get a lower interest rate, so it's the lowest cost to our ratepayers.
And given this interest rate environment, it's unlikely you'll come back to us with a refinance opportunity.
Right.
It's about as good as it's ever going to get.
It is.
Does anybody have any questions?
So if there are no questions, then I first would move then that we approve ordinance 20-48, and that is for the $1 million in waterworks revenue bonds.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Roll call, please.
Chanzit,
Aye?
Barron,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Aye.
Callahan,
Aye.
Meitzler,
Aye.
Malay,
Aye.
Ewer,
Aye.
Saron,
Aye.
McFadden,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Rosato,
Aye.
Beck,
Aye.
and Knopf. Motion carried 13-0.
Great. Then I'll move on to ordinance 20-49. That is for the sewer revenue bonds, 2.35.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Roll call, please.
Chanzit,
Aye?
Barron,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Aye.
Callahan,
Aye.
Meitzler,
Aye.
Malay,
Aye.
Ewer,
Aye.
Saron,
Aye.
McFadden,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Rosato,
Aye.
Beck,
Aye.
and Knopf. Motion carried 13-0.
Thank you. And then on to 20-50. That is for the general obligation bonds at $4 million. I move that we approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any additional discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Chanzit,
Aye?
Barron,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Aye.
Callahan,
Aye.
Meitzler,
Aye.
Malay,
Aye.
Ewer,
Aye.
Saron,
Aye.
McFadden,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Rosato,
Aye.
Beck,
Aye.
and Knopf. Motion carried 13-0.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Next up will be item 11, Resolution 20-94-R, awarding a grant to Main Street for the boardwalk shops.
And then this came out of committee last week where we had discussed the success of the boardwalk shops and that we had talked about funding some additional shops to bring them up to the full number. They were asking for, what is it, $32,000 to assist with completing the project. Laura, is there any additional to your memo?
Nope, that's it.
If there's any additional discussion, anyone? Okay, I would move that we approve awarding the grant to BATV Main Street for the boardwalk shops.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any additional discussion? A roll call, please.
Chanzit,
Aye.
Barron,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
O'Brien,
Aye.
Callahan,
Aye.
Meitzler,
Aye.
Malay,
Aye.
Ewer,
Aye.
Saron,
Aye.
McFadden,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Rosato,
Aye.
Beck,
Aye.
and Knopf. Motion carried 13-0.
And while this could go on consent, I feel like it'd be a great opportunity to highlight the success, if that's okay to keep it on the regular agenda.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you.
Okay, next up will be a presentation on the mid-year report. Laura?
Okay, as we typically do mid-year, this is a presentation of a synopsis of what has occurred in our various departments in the city of Batavia, as well as what we have to look forward to for the second half of the year. But I think what we can all agree on is it's been an extraordinary set of circumstances that we have faced this year, and so it presents some unique challenges. In this presentation, initially, I'd like to go through what some of those challenges are and the way that they've been met by the various departments, and then I'd like to go through each department's presentation. Would you like to pause at the end of each department? All the department heads are present either in person or online to answer any questions that you might have, and it might make sense to pause and ask those questions. Otherwise, I can just wait and tackle everything at the end. What's the preference?
I think it's easier than waiting to the end to ask all the questions going backwards. Just at the end of each department, we'll ask questions of that department if we have any. I think that's simpler.
So wait until the end?
No.
No, pause. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead and do it at the end of each one of the presentations.
Perfect, okay. All right. So of course, one of the biggest issues that is facing us this year, and why the biggest reason it's been an unprecedented year, is because of the global pandemic. One of the things is, and still you'll see in this presentation, the unforeseeable effects that it's going to have on our future revenues and how long that may last. It's also had a devastating impact to our business community, and we have partnered with Main Street and the Chamber to try to create programs to assist our business community. Police and fire, it was incredible how they had to respond on a daily basis and sometimes multiple times per day to changing of the procedures, the way that the PPE that they had to have available for their personnel, the schedules that they had to put together for their personnel, and the way that each call for service changed very rapidly for them, and they had to keep up with that. The employees here, we had to come up with workforce protection measures to make sure that we had a stable workforce to provide the essential services that this community needed at this time of crisis. And in order to do that, we had, have employees who were able to work at home and continue to do their jobs, to provide them with the resources and the tools that they needed to do that. So there was an enormous effort by our information systems to make that happen in a very short period of time for roles that it was, that it was fairly easy for them to conduct their work at home, but very also assisting work at home for some non-traditional roles within our organization, such as administrative staff. And they moved very quickly to be able to have people be able to do that. And then also our finance and HR, just as with the public safety side of things and a rapidly changing environment that needs to be reacted to, there were many employment issues as well as funding issues that both of those departments had to respond to in real time. And then first, the closing of our physical facility here at City Hall was a tremendously difficult decision for us to make, because we pride ourselves on being here for the community when they need us. But we had to come up with ways that we could continue to provide those services that the community looks to us to provide without being able to open our doors, open our public service counters in order to keep people safe. But in phase 3 and phase 4 of the Restore Illinois plan, we have now opened up City Hall, but we had to put in place protocols and equipment that we make sure that we're still keeping the public and our employees safe. These things alone would have been enough of a challenge, but we also this year have 4 large concurrent infrastructure programs going on. And why I'm glad that we're doing this consolidated presentation this evening is because you'll see how many departments' work is interdependent. And of course, this is a tremendous one. And we saw tonight with Peggy's presentation of the loans and the bonds and the funding it doesn't just end there. Once the funds are acquired, there are ongoing accounting responsibilities and interaction between these departments. And then the engineering staff to supervise the work that's being done, and all of the different utilities, because these works all represent the replacement of important infrastructure that exists in these roadways, and also a full road reconstruction on top of that. Furthermore, we needed to revise and retool a $50 million downtown redevelopment project. The project itself was redesigned because of the need for additional time in order to fund the project. We need to DTIF and RETIF, and also revise the redevelopment agreement that we originally entered into in 2016. And then finally, the national civil unrest that was brought about by the death of African Americans at the hands of police is calling into question the use of force policies, and it's a very evolving environment. We also saw that a peaceful protest in a city not 5 miles away from our own resulted in violence aimed at law enforcement and looting of downtown businesses. And it was the following day after that where we received notice that in just 48 hours, a peaceful protest was being planned in our own community. And so it took everybody coming together, but primarily the tip of the spear was our police department in being able to bring together all the resources necessary for that to be a safe and enjoyable event for everyone. And I think Batavia really rose to the occasion that day. Not just the city government, but all types of organizations and our residents too, and having that be a wonderful event that will be looked upon favorably by history. But any one of these 4 things would have made it an extraordinary year, but I wanted to just place everything that I'm going to talk about that we've been doing in the context of the environment in which it's been happening. And I'll start with finance. There's a lot on these slides because there's a lot that our small finance department accomplishes every year. Some of these things are of a nature that are recurring, such as, an annual audit, but it was special this year that we also had to do the single audit. And also in addition to that, the 2019 TIF audit and the TIF reports that are done. What was unique about this year is ordinarily we have our auditors come on site to review the documents, and it's usually put them in a room with those documents. It was a lot more work this year for our finance department because a virtual audit means that our physical records need to be converted into electronic records and then transmitted to those auditors. So kudos to that team, especially when we were doing social distancing and staggered scheduling to be able to accomplish that and get everything done on time. And then we mentioned the IEPA loans that were needed. That's a tremendous amount of paperwork that's associated with that. And then also setting up our accounts for tracking our costs associated with COVID so that we can be sure that our documentation is in proper order when we are then asking for reimbursement and funding. And surprise, we received an IMRF audit this year as well. And so HR and accounting worked together to prepare the information to successfully make that audit come out favorably for us. And then finally, these are research accounting for the Rebuild Illinois funds. That's the MFT, the additional MFT funding that comes from the increase in the state gas tax, and the bill which was passed providing billions of dollars in funding that we can apply for and fund some of the infrastructure projects that we have coming up in future years. In the second half, we are in the midst of an implementation of a new online utility billing and presentment program. That is called Paymentus, and you may have seen mention of that on social media. We're getting it out there. Should be completely up and running in the month August, and it has new capabilities for customers. I think one of the most important during this time being that we can set people up on a payment schedule. So those that are having trouble paying their bills, that's really important for us to be able to work with them to try to catch up. That same system is going to be used for our online permitting. So the Finance Department is working in conjunction with Community Development to bring that about. And then also more work associated with COVID-19. And finally, what's listed here is monitoring our past due accounts and proactively working with customers. And while we have reestablished shutoffs for utilities, we're going to do so in a fair and reasonable manner and try to work with people because we understand that people are having hardships. So if they're willing to work with us, we're probably going to be able to avoid a shutoff situation. We're going to receive the IEPA loans for the infrastructure work that we have going, and that's going to mean that we're going to have to maintain the record keeping associated with the expenses related to those loans, monitor all of those capital projects, and submit for the loan reimbursements when appropriate. And then finally, monitoring the spending and revenues. And on the next few pages, Peggy has put together some slides with some graphs that outline what that is. We're going to monitor our sales tax, our general fund revenue categories. We're keeping track of all the state reporting that's coming out in order to be able to plug that into our planning for next year's budget. And then also watching for when the COVID-19 grants might become available through King County. And they always provide the budgetary support for other departments as well. So this next graph here is the only slide that contains July data. Now, it's what was received in July. We receive sales taxes 3 months after they are paid to the state. And so while that top dark blue bar says that it represents July, that would actually be sales from April. Up until that point, we were looking pretty steady with 2019, but as you can see, that impact is first hitting us for the April sales. And I expect that to continue into May as well. We did not move into phase 3 until the end of May. We moved into phase 4 at the end of June. And so I think that when we receive the numbers for the amounts for June, the month of June, and the month of July, that we're going to see a little bit of recovery from where these 2 months fall off. Income tax. I'm glad Peggy made a note on that middle bar. It was kind of a deal that the state made on the LGDF where they said, we're reducing it, but we're going to give you an extra payment. So we had a one-time additional payment in 2019, which elevated the May amount. So where we're tracking in 2020 is very similar to where we were tracking in 2018. And according to Peggy, we probably won't see an impact of income tax or LGDF until next year. These are non-sales tax consumption taxes. Telecom continues to decline rapidly due to people not having landlines in their home anymore. This is a $50,000 reduction just over last year in the first 6 months. Natural gas, that's very weather dependent. And we have experienced 70% of our receipts for natural gas already this year because of the lag in the payment is the payment for all of those winter months in the first half of the year. Gasoline tax is a little interesting. It's down because of the stay-at-home order and that only essential businesses were allowed to be open. But it will be interesting to see the impact of people not flying and driving for vacations and or not leaving the area, there is the potential for that to recover this year. And liquor tax is slightly up due to staying at home, probably. And then we have a page that shows where the general fund major revenues and our major expense categories are going to be on the next page. So this isn't representative of all of our revenues, because all of our revenues are, 29 million. But it gives you a good idea of where things are at on some of our typical big ticket items. You'll notice that the plumbing inspection is slightly behind, building permits are slightly behind. I would put on a caveat on that building permits, because we have had a lot of building permits this year. They just have not been of a type that are a high dollar value. We had a lot of roof replacements. We've had a lot of remodeling going on, but those are not big ticket items. And then fines and tickets, you'll notice when we go through the police department report that during the stay-at-home order, there was about a 30% reduction in calls for service during that period of time. So salaries and wages and benefits, I'll say this more than once, represent more than 75% of our operational expenses. The remaining categories on this page are what I would deem the more controllable expenses. And as you can see, we've been really working hard at holding back on making expenditures in these various areas of employee development, commodities, repairs and maintenances, professional services, and capital where they could be avoided. And now I'll turn to Public Works. Public Works is, oh, I'm sorry,
Anybody have-
pause.
Does
That's
anybody
right.
have any questions? Said we would pause if anybody has any questions.
Gives me a chance to catch my breath.
Well, I'll just say, we'll pause there. I know Peggy has probably heard it, and maybe not enough, but I think this is an amazing job that you've done so far this year.
Yeah.
With everything that's going on and trying to work your way through, doing everything virtually to do all the audits. I can't imagine having to scan everything that I know that they have to have. And to make sure that it all got done on time and then it all happened. So thank you and the department for all that and all the work that I know IS has done to help with
Right.
all of that, and everything that you have to do with every department you have to work with. So just another thank you.
Okay, then I will move on to the Public Works mid-year report. There are fewer things on the page, but they are definitely major items. The capital improvement projects, again, we've got Ward 1, which is a drainage project, as well as Area 3. Both of those have been going on. This is the third year that those projects have been going on. Area 3 is near completion, as is Ward 1. But then we've got the major road reconstruction projects that are going on. Main Street, all the way from Water Street to Van Buren Street. And then also Prairie Street, which is going to be happening in 2 phases. We've got the first phase is ongoing right now, but as well, we've been doing the engineering study and planning for the phase 2, which would include the intersection of Wilson and Prairie Street. And then also engineering studies for, and the Northeast Distribution substation and feeders. That's a very important project to replace that infrastructure for our industrial customers that are located there. And that combined with having our own electric utility, I think is a competitive advantage as we seek to refill vacancies in our industrial area. And then also we have people who are building new buildings there. The second are engineering studies and planning for Carriage Crest and Mahoney Creek, which were recently both presented here at Committee of the Whole, and we did a big education presentation for Mahoney Creek, the water treatment plant engineering study and planning, and as I mentioned, Prairie Street Phase 2. Public Works is providing a tremendous amount of support for community development. The Menards expansion included some very complex and complicated drainage issues that took up a lot of time for the engineering staff to assist with. Also, One Washington Place, the various components of that have to do with bringing infrastructure, the public parking garage, the oversight of construction, the environmental remediation that needs to be accomplished. There are all matters that we need Public Works guidance on. Also, similar aspects having to do with the Prairie Commons and windmill landing developments. And also support for economic development with regard to when we came up with ideas to try to assist our business community to adapt to, in Phase 3, being able to have outdoor seating. When we said that we should close North River Street, Public Works pulled that off in 48 hours. By Thursday night, there was a one-way street with outdoor dining on it, and that was quite a feat. We're lucky that we have a very adept and quick ability to provide signage and banners through our Public Works Department, and then also providing the electric supply for the boardwalk shops this year too. In the second half, it's going to be more of those capital improvement projects. We're going to use every bit of nice weather that we can, and a continuation of the engineering studies for Carriage Crest, the water treatment plant, Prairie Street Phase 2, and the Paramount substation. So another thing that I wanted to address in our mid-year report, in April, there were a number of budget items that we put on hold. Since then, there have been things that were on that list that we made a recommendation to go ahead and do, such as the bike share program, and that was $13,000. But I do want to make sure everybody knows we are going to, in August, be receiving $7,000 back from Kane County as a rebate to us for being among the first cities to participate in that program. In addition to that, the following 4 items are what Public Works recommends that we consider putting back into the budget at this point. One is the contractual hauling of snow and leaves for $18,000. We really need that to support operations and the staffing levels that are impacted by having to work split shifts with employees being able to physically distance one another from one another. Also, water improvements. The current status of our ongoing construction projects, as well as pending application process for a lead service replacement grant. We'd like to expend $166,000 toward that. In order to be awarded the grant, we need to have a shovel-ready program ready to do this work. This money, we just learned, it will become available. It's kind of a tight time frame that we're working with, but it would be amazing to be able to qualify for state funding in order to address lead service replacement issues. I think we've talked here before that there's been a threat by the pending legislation that would require cities to just pay for this and do this with no funding whatsoever. So to the extent that we can pay something to put ourselves in a position to be eligible for this funding is important. Carriage Crest Engineering, this is a discussion that was recently held in Committee of the Whole, that we would like to move forward with the engineering studies that will continue into 2020. That's about a $45,000 item. And then also, we have some emergency work that has occurred since April for electrical improvements that are needed of $150,000. Gary, if you're on the line, did you want to add any information?
He's right there.
He's behind you.
Or the person who's sitting behind me?
Thank you for that. Yeah.
I was just trying to pull up the numbers, that's what I was just trying to do here on my phone, so I don't have them handy, but the values up there, the original savings, and I think water, I don't remember the exact value off the top of my head, but I think water was originally savings of 300,000. That value represents the savings that would still occur. So in other words, instead of 300,000, now it's 160,000, and the difference, the need to spend 140,000 is for those things that are outlined there, like the lead service replacement and actual ongoing construction costs. So those are the values that represent how much we're still going to continue to save that have been updated from the April chart. So that I just wanted to clarify.
Does anybody else have any questions? Just real quick, Gary, can you kind of give us just a little overview of what the electric issue is? Is there something?
We've had a couple of emergency repairs. One was off of Millview this year. We've had one, Windmill Manor was one of them that also needed to be done this year. These are underground wire from the 1980s that's
Okay.
starting to fail. And it's just end-of-life issues, and the only way to really fix them, once you make so many repairs in a line, you have to just replace the line.
Replace it,
So
okay.
that's where we're at right now.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Anybody on the phone have any comments? Okay, next
Okay.
up.
And next up, we have community and economic developments. In the first half, they had to adapt their way of doing business from a more paper-based business to an electronic system due to COVID. But things went fairly smoothly with that. So, and some people continue to utilize that as the way that they are interacting with the department. And we have made progress with the web and online permitting. As I previously mentioned, that last element is just the ability to accept payments, and we're just about there. So that should be launching shortly. And then also, there's been a tremendous amount of work associated with One Washington Place. In the second half, we're going live with our online permitting system, working on revising our building codes. We are going to be bringing back the redevelopment agreement, the design for One Washington Place, as well as de-TIFing 5 and establishing a TIF 6. We want to move forward in the second half with the formal integration of economic development into community development, and I'll get to that a little bit more on the next slide. And we will be making further zoning code changes and zoning map amendments and working on annexing the remainder of those islands of, that exist within the borders of our city, and work to begin looking at South River Street for improvements and enhancements, do some planning for that area, and perhaps put in place some economic development incentives to see some change in that area to be a better gateway toward our downtown. First on the amount, the consideration for removal from the budget hold would be to restore the funding for the economic development manager position. That $52,000 represents the salary and benefits for the second half of the year. Of course, we're not, going to be hiring the person tomorrow. It would typically take 2 to 3 months, actually, for us to find that person. But doing so now allows us, when 2021 comes, that we can really hit the ground running. This is really a position that can help us recruit, retain, and encourage new businesses and developments here. The piece that's missing, it's Scott and I and Anthony work together as a team to respond to people who are coming to us with opportunities, whether it be a new development or somebody that wants to lease a space and put their business here and they need assistance with the zoning. That critical element that we're really missing here is that person who is an ombudsman for the project. a concierge to the service. That's the guy that you can call when you want to know what's up with this, or can you help me get my inspection scheduled? And really, that's where we see this person playing an extremely important role. It's the person who was your first contact at the city, and they're going to be with you through your project to your ribbon cutting and beyond. It would also help us launch our business registration program that would have been so helpful to us during trying to communicate with businesses during the COVID crisis. Scott says the hunter aspect of the budget, that's something that we can wait on. We're also suggesting that perhaps we put some more money toward the gateway grants if there is demand from the business community to do projects like that. And he has mainly put training and conferences on hold at this point, but there might be some online opportunities for education that his department can engage in, and so we would like to do that. And if there is going to be a virtual ICSC show, that's the International Council of Shopping Centers Conference, that is the largest retail conference in the United States. It's held in two different locations at two different times a year, earlier in the year in Las Vegas, in October in Chicago. So if there is an online aspect to that, it would be very beneficial for Batavia to participate in that. And that is community and economic development. In case, does anybody have any questions? I think Scott is online unless he's snuck in the room behind me.
Nope, I'm online.
Did I leave anything out, Scott?
No, I don't think so. I think you covered pretty much everything that we had talked about before.
Okay.
So when you talk about the online permit, does that mean that the person that applies for the permit can print it from home also, as opposed to having to come down here and picking it up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole system that we're working on that would allow all that, as well as an online payment as well.
And will there be like an expiration date on it, or?
Yes.
Okay.
There's always an
Yeah.
expiration date.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, usually permits are good for 6 months. And if you haven't started the work, and if you've started the work, we allow the permit to continue more or less indefinitely.
So that kind of saves us some money on our printing costs.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Human Resources has done a tremendous amount this year reacting to the employment aspects of COVID. And in addition to that, as I mentioned previously, the IMRF audit, it ended up being an excellent report for us. We also this year conducted a dependent audit, and what that is, if you're not familiar, is that all employees were asked to provide proof of marriage and also proof of that children were theirs. And so they had to upload birth certificates and marriage licenses and whatnot. And to their credit, they were 100% compliant and on time. And the company that we worked with said they'd never seen that before. So we were really glad that we were able to accomplish that. Also, we did harassment and discrimination training for all employees and elected officials, and just tried to keep pace with staying at the forefront of not only implementing required policies, but trying to search for best practices on how to keep employees safe and be among the first organization to implement those strategies and those policies. And in the midst of all that, they managed to hire 12 new employees and all of the interviews and such that go along with that. In the second half, we unfortunately, the company that we have used for biometric testing in the past is no longer. And so we have to find a new source for doing wellness and biometric screening. It's one of the key elements of our wellness program is this biometric screening. Sometimes people go years without going to see a doctor until something becomes a critical situation. And it is, people find things in the biometric screening that they didn't even know existed. And we encourage employees, once they get their results, to go have a conversation with their doctors about that. It also helps us fine-tune our wellness program, because utilizing the aggregate data from the biometric screening helps us fine-tune what programs do we need. Do we need things about stress in the workplace, high blood pressure, healthy eating, all of those things. Also, we are going to an online open enrollment program this year, and we will continue our close monitoring of COVID-related concerns for our employees, one of the biggest of which right now is working with employees about their back-to-school situations. Some districts are in a hybrid, some are online, some are going back to school 100%. So we've reached out to employees and asked them to bring to our attention, and we'll work with them on trying to get a schedule that works for everybody. Does anybody have any questions about human resources?
Anybody?
Okay. This is information systems. They have been incredibly busy this year. GIS that prepares maps, and they also put information onto the maps that are all the assets for the city, and so they're very involved in the ViewWorks implementation that we have going on. And also Howard has been doing a lot of work with regard to ViewWorks as well. With regard to the pandemic, as I said, Howard and Ed Larson primarily worked on getting people laptops, getting people VPNs, and the ability to work remotely. In addition to that, as was planned, but has been a lot of work, is doing the Windows 10 upgrades. You can see how many of the computers he's done that for. Also, there are a number of employees within our organization that need to be involved in online meetings where the desktop computer did not have the technology that allowed them to participate. And so he's deployed 15 web cameras for virtual meetings throughout our organization. We replaced the police records management host server, and we expanded the Wi-Fi and upgraded it. And most recently, we will be contracting with a redundant service provider as well. And then we also just called out, thank you very much for adding that position to the Information Systems Department. I don't know what we would have done without it this year. In the second half, we're going to be upgrading the water SCADA system. Howard's deeply involved in the implementation of Paymentus and ViewWorks. We are also going to a cloud and web-based system for our cemetery software, which is very important for people who are visiting their relatives in the cemetery to be able to find where the plot is located, but it also allows us the opportunity to link to other software systems, and it helps with genealogy and all of those different things. So it's just really bringing it up to state of the art. Microsoft Systems Center Configuration Manager. This is going to be huge for IS because it means that they're going to be able, through a cloud-based system, to be able to configure computers. So they can sit at one computer and configure multiple computers across the system. Instead of having to visit your desk to upgrade your software they can do it remotely with this. Video surveillance server replacement. GIS is doing more data collection for the water utility. They work very closely with the utilities for all of the locating of their assets. Online permits, mobile device management, you can see the list goes on and affects every department across our organization, how it keeps us with up-to-date software and equipment. Howard has some suggestions for removal from budget hold. That would be the replacement of the copiers. You know, copiers are a real essential tool within our organization, and when they are end of life and it becomes more and more difficult to find replacement parts to keep them running, and in some case they could be down for days, which we don't have very many large copiers in the organization. Perhaps one of the things we can consider is leasing rather than buying. Ordinarily we buy because it's cheaper in the long run, but leasing makes it less expensive in the current year. And we may need to just kind of hang on to our cash in the short term, and maybe at this point, maybe some leasing makes sense. Document management software helps us do our jobs a lot more efficiently. Instead of having individual departments have individual databases of the exact same information, a document management software allows you to whittle those down to one system that everybody uses, and everything is in one place. And then just some more signage and displays. It allows us additional opportunities for contactless sharing of information. Putting these in our reception areas as well as places that employees visit regularly, particularly those employees who don't have a computer on their desk, and that's more than half the people in our organization. And so that's information systems. Does anybody have any questions for me or for Howard?
Do you think Howard will be coming back to us shortly with dollars and
Yes.
information on those so we can decide
Yes.
what we want to make happen on that?
I think for each of the individual items where we are asking you to consider for removal from budget hold, that we will bring those items to future committee of the whole meetings rather than expect, we're just presenting this information to you now, so it certainly isn't ripe for discussion, maybe.
Okay.
Okay, two more. We've got the fire department's midyear report. And our fire department had to change the way that they respond to calls when the COVID crisis hit, and think about how they were going to maintain their workforce being safe, as well as the members of the community who they are responding to, and then also work in conjunction with our resource hospitals on how to deal with COVID. And that was, day by day, making changes necessary to keep everyone safe. It was also difficult to keep up with the need for PPE. And so sourcing of that equipment for our firefighters and our EMTs was essential. And then also they created a COVID-19 incident action plan. And that had to do with the different procedures as well as staffing strategies that they use to keep everyone safe. They started the process of purchasing the new air packs from that FEMA grant that they were able to obtain, but we haven't been able to take possession of it yet because 3M is spending a lot of their resources making the N95 masks. And so there is not an air pack for us to purchase at this point, but you'll see we hope to be able to do that in the second half this year. Also, they've been working on the specs for the new engine pumper that has been temporarily placed on hold. And they implemented the Starcom radio network in Batavia utilizing a FEMA grant. And as we'll see in this presentation and the police presentation, this Starcom system allows for interoperability of the communication system, which is extremely important when there is a multi-jurisdictional response to an incident. It's hard for me to believe that I thought that this existed, that everybody could talk to one another, but before this, that was not true. With Starcom, everyone will be on the same frequency, and that will be essential. They purchased a new command car, and then recently we had the experience of a water main break at the West Side Station that needed responding to. And they've also been able to replace a large portion of the station lights. They've converted them over to LED for energy savings and efficiency. In the second half, they're going to try to complete that air pack purchase, if they see a good price on more PPE to replenish their stocks. And also, there's a collective bargaining to negotiate for 2021, so there'll be some meetings associated with that. And they're going to complete testing for a new list for full-time firefighters, and also start the lieutenant test process that'll be completed by early 2021. And we have 6 new paid on-call firefighters. We swore in 4 of them today, 4 of the 6. And the one thing to consider for removal from budget hold is to replace the 1996 engine pumper. That's a $1 million ticket item. If it doesn't get done this year, it needs to get done ASAP at the beginning of next year. That equipment is, it's 1996. You can imagine the systems that could potentially fail at this point. The thought is, because it takes 9 months for production of that vehicle, that it would be wise to get it started sooner rather than later. And that is the fire report. If anyone has any questions, I believe Randy is in the air.
I am.
Does anybody have any questions? I have one, Chief. If we were to start on this, going through to get the engine pumper ordered, or at least go out to bid on it, how long, is it going to take us 3 months to get to that point where we have to order it? So it's definitely going to be middle to the end of next year anyway?
We're going to do it probably on a group purchase through a cooperative, so we can get it done a little bit quicker. We could probably order it by November or something like that, and probably have it delivered and done by September of next year or August of next year.
Do you think that there's going to be any savings on this at all, due to the fact that there are probably 100 other municipalities that are wrestling with the same question that maybe can't make that purchase this year?
I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know.
It's not like it's a pickup truck sitting on the lot that somebody else can't buy. It's still going to be built.
Right.
But I'm sure that they've got to be feeling the same impacts of this as a lot of the other industries out there.
Right.
I guess.
Can I ask a question? This is Nick.
Go ahead.
No, I was just curious. You had mentioned a group purchase program. Does the timing of our purchase, it doesn't have an effect on that, on the price?
No, they every year they go out for bid in this group cooperative, and they get the bids, and so it's good for a whole year, the bids that they have.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, go ahead.
I guess I would say from clients I've spoken with, and even my own personal household, it's impossible to even get a couch nowadays with supply chain breakdown. So it occurred to me that we really probably need to move this up in way higher priority. I'm just afraid that even if we do get the order in and they say they're shipping it, like my scooter that was supposed to arrive tonight, it won't be arriving for a month. Yeah, big heartbreak. I'm just terrified about having a truck breakdown, and we can't really lease one of those. So.
Yeah, and then we get stuck with whatever repairs we have to pay for to keep
Right.
that vehicle operational for
Exactly.
whatever period of time it takes us to get it.
And don't you have enough credit saved up for a free one?
Yeah, you would think so.
We have the money in the bank for that, thanks to that program that we charge $1,250 a month for every building, for every new house.
Mm-hmm.
3 cents a square foot to commercial and industrial. So I know we have the money in the bank already to pay for a truck, and it's in a special fund, it's not in the general fund right now, so it's not like we're trying to take any money away from anybody else.
Right,
Well, I would say, bring it to another cow meeting and
right.
let's get this moving.
Okay. And police department, the first half, big challenge with staffing, keeping everyone safe and healthy, providing the PPE in order to maintain our continuity of operations. But I think it's a huge thing that both our fire department and our police department, the entire workforce remains fit for duty. We are very, very fortunate, but it was due to good planning. Calls for service and self-initiated activity volumes down by 30% in the beginning of the year, but now, as the restrictions are being lifted, we're seeing traffic volumes increase, getting reports of aggressive driving, and so we've been trying to apply some targeted enforcement in conjunction with the relaunch of our Slow Down campaign. In the second half, we have been, our overtime was below projections, but when we had to assist other jurisdictions in the months of May and June, that ticked back up. And one of the challenges for us in the police department has been conducting in-service training, and specifically for our department-wide crisis intervention team training has to be done in person because of certain aspects of that. And so it's pushed our timeline out to be able to complete that to December 12th of 2021. But one of the things we've been fortunate is we have a subscription to Police Learning Institute, which is an online service, and this year, very beneficial to us in terms of being able to be in compliance with some state mandated training requirements, and particularly in the area of implicit bias, cultural competency, recognizing unconscious biases, protecting civil rights, and evidence-based enforcement. And we just completed our training on that this month. Here also, the STARCOM radio system for police communication is fully implemented. One of the things we did need to add was a bidirectional antenna, which improved a poor signal strength problem that we were having associated with these state-of-the-art windows that we put on this building. Sometimes we improve one thing and we create a different problem, but we have overcome that with installation of this antenna. And so, as I said, it's really improved the interoperability, particularly in multi-jurisdictional responses that we have. They are currently under a review of their critical department policies, expected to be completed by the end of August. The Board of Fire and Police Commissioners are reviewing all facets of both the initial applicant process and the police sergeant examinations, and that are scheduled for 2021. And so the chief and his command staff are assisting with that. And then also, we are examining the potential for an addition of body-worn camera system. We've met with 2 different vendors, and we're going to discuss with another one to try to figure out who is the best fit for our particular needs, and then try to acquire some test equipment prior to the end of this year and incorporate recommendation for a program in the 2021 budget. But that, just to kind of set the table there, that's going to be a significant expense probably for implementation, but it's one of those things that about the evolving world of law enforcement that has become a need more than a want in today's environment. Also, the department records section is preparing for a changeover in their, the way that they report statistics to DOJ. The old system, the UCR is being converted over to NIBRS. That's going to cause some changes to the way that they do things there. And also the cutover is expected to begin January 1st of 2021 and last all the way throughout 2022 as well. Any questions for Police Department Midyear Report?
Anybody?
Okay. There are 4 more slides. These last slides, I wanted to focus on the 2021 budget because, in the first half of the year, the finance department is focused on a lot of reporting that needs to be put together based on the previous year. And then they get no break after those are done, then begins the process for planning for the next year's budget. And these are just some ideas that we need to keep in mind as we approach that process. We are so fortunate here in the city of Batavia to have excellent reserves. I believe they sit at about $10.5 million right now. That is true in all of our funds except for the water utility. They have had tremendous expenses very recently in improving some infrastructure, but we'll be able to build up their reserves again over time. We do have some planned increases in the rates for our water utility and our sewer utility. We want to take a look at all possible revenue sources. So we know we got property tax. That's a pretty unpopular source of revenue, and we always hope that we can either hold the line on that or find other sources of revenue where we don't have to rely upon that as much. We've got our home rule sales tax, but the situation there is that it could lead to, people deciding to buy things in other jurisdictions if our sales tax is higher than theirs in neighboring communities. We've tossed around in the past the idea of implementing an amusement tax. This is something that the city of Chicago has implemented, and it's quite a revenue stream that they're generating from the the streaming services and a tax that they put on that. However, it would apply to all amusement businesses, and it could be, looked at as kind of an unfair burden on those particular businesses versus others at a time when, our own theater company, their corporate is in bankruptcy right now. Another thing is there's many unknowns at this time. I wish that I could come to you with revenue projections, but as you see, they've not come in yet. And, the other thing that we don't know is whether there will be any rolling back of the restore and reopen in the case where the infection rate continues to increase a little bit here, but quite drastically in other areas of the country. So, as we approach this next budget, we are going to recommend looking at it as the normal budget, but we do need to have in the back of our mind that if the impacts to revenue are drastic, we will understand where cuts need to be made. The thing that's difficult about making cuts is that, as I said, more than 75% of the general fund operating budget is wages and benefits, and that those increase every year. And so revenues are always going to continuously fall short, and we need to find ways that we can supplement that. So we'll need to use some reserves for 2021 and hope that we'll have a more stabilized picture at some point in that year. Things that we know are that expenditures are always going to outpace revenues unless there's new revenue sources. 2020, we had a planned deficit. 2021 will be at a deficit unless we make some structural change to staffing. One of the ways that we can do that doesn't affect the number of positions that we have within the organization is delaying refilling positions. And so if we wait a few months, that's 25% of what the salary was that we budgeted for that year. You know, sometimes that happens accidentally when we, for instance, the manager for the electric utility is a position that remained open for a year before we were able to fill it. And so that was a real savings that particular year of not paying salary and benefits. We could do that purposefully as a way of reducing our expenses. So given where we're at from economic conditions, it is really not a reasonable expectation that revenues will keep pace with spending in the short term. Other COVID-19 impacts on finances and our workforce to keep into consideration is whether there'll be further closure. There's also a cost impact and a mental health impact to employees on that, as well as adjustments we'll make for school and childcare issues. We hope that the CARES Act funding will provide us with some financial relief, but there is always the possibility that there will be implemented unfunded mandates at either the state or federal level that we will just have to find the money to do things that are required. And then with regard to the capital projects that we have planned, you know, what should we move forward with and what can we wait on? So we're having discussions with senior staff and also internal discussions when we have departmental meetings with supervisors and employees about what changes we can make to operations in the short term to save money and even possibly change the way that we do business in the long term to save money. The workforce wages are unknown except for some union contracts where they are specifically dictated. If we have disparity in wage increases, that causes, a problem with morale issues that could be problematic. But we will be reviewing our structure and evaluate some changes that we might be able to make. And then our short and long-term impact to revenues. What will those be are anybody's guess at this point. But one of the things that we have to look at is even if there continues to be further opening of our economy, there are still people who don't want to go out and patronize businesses because of the risk of being infected. And so that is going to be probably going on for quite some time, as well as the fact that there doesn't seem to be a point at which we could foresee large gatherings being allowed at this point until there is an effective treatment and or a vaccine. We know that City Council is going to review and evaluate the strategic plan, and also staff recommends that we really make a focus toward economic development. That while we're holding back on expenses in some areas, it really is important for us to make good decisions and be supportive of economic development that's going to be essential for our long-term viability. And we've got some of those opportunities listed up there. And ways that the economic development manager position could assist with, in particular, is to ease our processes and make us a very business-friendly community. And that's our presentation.
Does anybody have any questions at this point? Marty?
Just maybe one, being as this is a time of unprecedented activity. One of the ones that I was surprised we didn't have up there was communications. This is a time of transparency. This is a time of making sure that we are doing everything we can to coordinate all the messages being put out on the federal level, the state level, and maybe something as to what we're doing in that arena.
Did you say communications? Okay, yes.
Right.
I'd be happy to, because there is a lot that's going on in that arena. And so next Tuesday, I'll present some of the communications aspects of it, because, yeah, there, you know, we collected information in one area, and there's probably just too much to go into right now, but I'll pull that together. Thank you.
And it's the one that is kind of the adhesive for a lot of these, especially with, as we move on in the future, the department that's probably going to change the most nationwide is going to be law enforcement. So making sure that we're communicating a lot of ideas that the community is suggesting, and as has been fantastic, the police communications out to the public, that some of the initiatives that people wonder about are already being done and are already top-notch.
Yes. Thank you.
I have a question, Laura.
Anybody else?
Just
Maybe?
how's morale among the staff? I mean, with that's a lot. That was a long presentation of a lot of really big projects, a lot of just heavy themes of 2020. Now, how's everybody doing?
Thank you for the opportunity to answer that question, because what an amazing staff that we have here at the City of Batavia. From the department head level, this team works together, never like that is not my problem to solve. Instead, they come together as one cohesive group to find the best solution to any problem that there is. Nobody kind of sits back and doesn't offer ideas, but that runs, throughout the organization. They take that same leadership down to their own teams. But what you saw during this COVID crisis and the other challenges that you see up there is it's a lot of work. I think people are tapped to the limit. They're probably experiencing a lot of exhaustion at this point, because people got into this line of work to be here for this type of crisis and this time, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done. And they're not taking time off. And when we told people that we're splitting you into teams and we need you when you're not here at work to shelter in place, they didn't go out and shop. They didn't, go outside of their homes. They realized how important it was for them to keep themselves healthy, because that meant the workforce was going to be healthy. And when they're healthy at work, they're not bringing that back to their families either. So just a tremendous amount of dedication throughout the organization. I could not be more grateful or impressed every day with how people have shown up to do their very best in light of all of this. And knowing that we can't really, we have to save money at the same time too. So I think that employees have been very, very conscientious about trying to not spend, to say, okay, it's budgeted, but do we really need it? Do we need it now? Do we need that one? Or can we find something that is a less expensive alternative? Everybody treats it like it's their, household budget, that make the best choices possible. So I can't say enough about them, but I also do know that, thank you for recognizing how much was up there, that it's been a big strain on everyone. We're lucky to have the positions that we do. I can't imagine trying to face these challenges with anything less than the team that we have right now. So thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, where's the $2 million in CARES Act funding going to fit into the budget? or fill some of those holes?
That's a great question, Mike. It is really, the CARES Act funding can be applied to, as I said in the last meeting, the 100% of the salary and benefits for the public safety employees between March 1st and December 31st of this year. That expense for the city of Batavia, I estimate to be $4 million. Now, that being said, there are other expenses that CARES Act money is eligible to be applied toward, and you may decide to apply that money to those other things, given that we did build a budget that had salary and benefits for our public safety included in it.
Is that $4 million higher than last year?
I think that there will be ways that it is higher than last year. At the end of the year, I think we'll end up with, perhaps more overtime than we had anticipated because of this. But the other thing the reason why the Treasury Department defined it in that way is that it would be impossible on any given call for service to determine what aspects of that were related to the COVID crisis versus the everyday and ordinary. And so instead of having to make that impossible judgment call, U.S. Treasury says all of the salary and benefits for those positions are COVID related.
And then, is it possible to be below budget then with that $2 million in funding?
Yes, if we apply that, then that is money that we had not anticipated being able to use toward the salary and benefits.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Peggy, did you want to add anything to my response to those questions?
The money will go into grant revenue in the general fund, so it will be there to offset our spending. But I think what your question is would we be further ahead and we would have more revenues than we had anticipated, but we will be also have less revenues in sales tax. But the money cannot be specifically to fill shortages from budgetary shortfalls. It just has to be, we would have to have sufficient expenditures that money applies to. And the salaries alone are about $5 million, not including benefits. So we will more than exceed the amount of the grant.
Okay, does anybody that's on the phone have any questions? Okay, thank you for a long, detailed presentation.
I do truly welcome any feedback about, thinking of doing the consolidated for the mid-year and maybe individual for the annual, but, any feedback that you have about this presentation, Laura, it's way too long. Honestly, please give that.
I think it's really good for us, especially this year, to have this in the middle of the year, to take a look at what's going on, what each department thinks they still need to accomplish this year, the crazy challenges that we've already had this year, and where the departments think they're going, because I think that it's not over yet.
No.
It's not anywhere close to being over, and I think, we have to be prepared to look at this differently than we did last year. I mean, this isn't just a normal mid-year, hey, this is how things are going, this is what we're doing. This is some really big decisions I think we as council members are going to have to make in the next year. And budget is not going to be fun this year. for anybody. Okay, now we'll move on to a discussion of the effect of the pandemic on strategic action plan.
Yes.
Even more fun.
Okay, I hope no one will be disappointed that I did not plan on this being a long discussion. I'm just trying to kind of set the table here that we have had things occur that we could not have even conceived of back in July of 2018 when we created this plan. My recommendation is that we'll be getting the results of the community survey here in about a month. And we will also, I think what we need to do is kind of take a step back from our current strategic priorities that we established in this plan and go back to that first part of the process that we did before, that was the SWOT analysis, looking at our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and our threats, because the landscape has changed so drastically. And then we'll also have this input from the community survey. And then let's take a look at this plan and determine, do we need to change course? And then we can be ready for that come the beginning of 2021. We can incorporate all of those ideas into our budgeting. And so I guess as long as I see a lot of nods for the people who are here, but does that sound like an appropriate way forward with our strategic plan?
Yeah, I think the pause button is a good thing to hit right now. And I think with the info from the survey and then from everything we got tonight already from our departments, I think it's something that we need to sit down and look at it and maybe reprioritize some of the things that we've discussed or some of the things we have in there, and, analyze some of the threats I think that we've seen on the revenue side especially, and then decide where we want to go. And I don't think that happens in one night, but I think that's something that we have to get that discussion out in front of us and look at it again and decide which way we move. Dan?
Were you proposing like another mini retreat style meeting?
Yes.
Like a multi-night kind of thing?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We spent all that time on the front end of this. It makes sense to spend retreat style meetings again. So thank you. That's a great idea.
Okay.
So being the new person, when I read through the strategic plan, I was like, as I sit in these meetings, I'm like, that doesn't seem like the direction that we're going in. So I
Right.
think, definitely, taking the pause, reevaluating things, and definitely based on the feedback and the landscape of what we've had to deal with.
Right.
Some of it is even planning for those unexpected.
Exactly.
How can we plan for that?
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Very good.
Anybody else have any comments, questions? Okay. Next up, Laura, would be status.
I have a couple of things. Let me just bring it up here. Sorry, I usually have it printed out. Okay, just some updates on Plan Commission. We'll have a meeting on August 19th to discuss several city rezonings and one private property rezoning. We actually are getting communications from a number of different businesses that are working with our local property owners on kind of some new exciting opportunities for businesses in our downtown. So we're excited about that. And then also in Public Works, Main Street is experiencing some delays from the original project schedule. This is mainly due to utility work and unforeseen underground utility conflicts. Our goal remains to achieve substantial completion by the end of the year, but we will do our best. On the opposite side of that, Prairie Street is currently tracking ahead of schedule. Concrete and temporary paving operations are underway and scheduled to continue for the next several weeks. Ward 1 construction has reached substantial completion, and the contractor will be working on the final registration, restoration, and punch list items. And Area 3 is on schedule with underground water main and storm sewer work continuing. Engineering is working to finalize a scope of services for the next phase in Carriage Crest. And we're reviewing engineering plans for improvements to the water treatment plant. Let's see, I think that might be it. Yes, unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions? Okay. Does anybody have any others?
I'll do.
Marty?
Yeah, I know Abby's kind of discussed this before with kind of the parklet discussions and kind of those features. As we look towards who knows when COVID's going to end, outdoor dining is going to be a competitive advantage. Everybody's doing it right now, not out of, oh, let's try it. They're doing it out of necessity. And part of that is going to be how do we make it as attractive, as eye-appealing, as making people want to go there. I know I was just in quarantine, and I went away and quarantined out in rural New York, but while I was traveling, there are so many places in Boston and the Northeast region that are doing fantastic. They look great with a lot of the concrete barriers. They've painted them, and they look just amazing. And I know a lot of local places are doing that too. As we are a artistic community, I think there's a lot of resources available to us to kind of dress it up and make it look a little more over the top and put our own Batavia stamp on it. I know there are requirements that we have to do with IDOT, et cetera, but I think there are opportunities that I know with kudos to Main Street with throwing the cocktails in the yard. That was a great innovative solution that got people to socially distance and still have parties safely apart from each other, but everybody still felt connected because everybody's sharing and talking. And I think during that, I heard from a lot of neighbors, probably everybody's seen a lot of social media commentary, but more importantly, I talked to a lot of the business owners down on River Street and the surrounding area that think we can do just a little bit more to kind of put our own Batavia element to it, be it lighting, be it staging, even small things like I believe Melissa Mano said, moving the planters in front and then still put the barricades behind them if we're concerned about, but putting our better foot forward instead of the plain barricades first and foremost. So I know I'd like to see some of that and some of the suggestions that Abby has made. A lot of these things are low cost to no cost. We've got great volunteers in this community. I think we can find creative ways to step up our game a little bit.
Sounds good.
If we can just get IDOT to believe that.
Well, and that's where I'm saying, let's look to what else can we do
Right.
that we don't, forget, they're going to do what they can, but are there other things that we're missing And that's just going to come from talking to some of the business owners and people that I know you know that have great suggestions out there and have a, well, I don't know if we can do that we've never been through anything like this before. Dave Brown's a big proponent. What's the shot? Just let's try it. We're not going to, if the virus isn't going to kill us, let's at least put some lipstick on a few pigs around here.
And I've done a lot of, I'll say,
Let's be able to see him with the mask.
wandering views. I've been out on a motorcycle a lot lately just to try to keep my sanity. And one of the things I've tried to do is drive through a lot of towns and look and see how places have done whatever they've tried to do, and everything from Hinckley to Maple Park to Lake Geneva, to Naperville, and look at all kinds of different places. I mean, I was just down in Utica last weekend, and they have it was about a block and a half of that's their downtown. And they literally have each end of it blocked off. And I counted 7 restaurants that all have their own tables out into the street, and that's their area. That's what they use now. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that can be done, and I think a lot of it just has to be, again, try something and see what works, and if it doesn't work perfectly, try something else, and maybe that works better.
Yeah, and I think if there's any policy decisions that need to be made, clearly as we've kind of said before, let's go ahead and kind of get them taken care of.
I'd also like to see if there's something that we can do to help with Water Street. I mean, we have phenomenal resources over there. I'd love to see a restaurant come in and go, I want to set up 3 troughs and sell beer out of it. Beer, White Claws, and just flip it off that way, or even get a food truck down there. If there's something that we have to do to, encourage something like that, just to get people out there and helping,
I'm really distraught that I missed the pierogi truck over at the
Oh, me too.
east side. That sounded really, really good.
But, and that's like a prime example. Look where we were, even through all the discussions with the shops. Christmas in July with food trucks and all that. A lot of that's kind of necessitated by making sure we're stepping up our game. But there's a lot of great ideas, a lot of great people that have fantastic ideas out there, and that's our natural resource that we should be tapping into.
A few follow-ups on that. I know we need to have these 2 types of barriers for Water Street. Do they have to go in that order? Could we put the cement barricade in front of the orange one and paint it and make it pretty? Or could we put planters, like he was saying, just in front of the orange?
Or maybe somebody can decorate the barriers.
Yes,
like flowers.
I don't know.
We'll look into it.
And
It changes the colors. We can't do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Gary can back me up on this, but I think that there are requirements that have to be met, and the problem is it's on a state route on the east side. No matter what we want to think or how it looks to the majority of the public, it's still on an Illinois state route. That's why Water Street is different. I think we can do, correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, but we could do it differently on Water Street. We can't. To block the street, we have to have the barricades have to be first.
You said
You have to have the orange, you have to have the orange barricades, the
Right.
type 3. But Abby's saying if we have the concrete blocks, we can paint those.
Right.
Yeah,
And
the
then-
concrete blocks are considered supplemental safety devices. They are not the primary safety
Right.
devices, even though common sense might
Yeah.
that makes
suggest
Right.
differently. The primary safety devices are the orange and white.
Type 3.
barricades. Type 3, yes.
But for safety, the concrete, in this day and age with, as everyone has seen with terrorist events, the concrete ones are your primary. That's just the way it is, but.
And has there been any progress on a parklet ordinance from the previous meetings?
So I'm looking at 2 different, the Minneapolis parklet ordinance and also the Rockford parklet ordinance because they seem to represent a little bit two ends of the spectrum of Minneapolis has a ton of regulation and it's very complex, and Rockford is probably a little bit too light and anything goes. And so I have those two, and I want to find a happy medium to bring to you.
Awesome. And then my third comment, just because it's been on my mind forever, but I've got one committee member that I still haven't confirmed for the Streetscapes Committee that would be helpful for all of these discussions. So I apologize that COVID really stopped me in my tracks in terms of getting progress going on creating that committee and bringing quarterly reports to you on all of that, because we could have had a lot of opportunity to make a lot of change, but there was a big COVID wall in my own my own world, so I apologize for that.
Doesn't Aurora have one too?
A Streetscapes Committee?
No, the parklet.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Because I don't know if, the way Minneapolis has taken this country, I don't think we want to really follow Minneapolis at this point for forethought and forward thinking.
So I'm, if there is actually a parklet ordinance and program in Aurora, it seemed when I read the newspaper articles about it, it was like something that was coming soon.
Oh,
And here are some businesses that we have identified that it would work well with. I felt like they're sort of in the same place that we're at. And just to set expectations, it kind of looks like something that you want to, the business to be able to take advantage of a full season for, so that we get it in place for this year, and then they can have them out there from March to October of next year, or May to October of next year.
Okay, that makes me feel better, because Aurora did kind of, well, a friend in Aurora kind of poked me about the parklets, like, we're going to get them before you do. I was like, ah. So maybe we can.
All right, sounds like a challenge.
Yes.
Maybe we could look into Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Okay.
They just approved the parklet ordinance on July 2nd.
Oh,
So
great.
Actually, I think Batavia, New York did too, because I have a Google alert for Batavia City Council stuff, and Batavia City Council approves parklets for new dining options. I was like, wait, what? You did? And I read this whole article. I was like, it's not us.
I'll look into that as well.
Okay, does anybody else have any other? Dan?
So I had a remark. I live a block away from the post office and the theaters, and I suppose with the closure of the theaters and the changes in traffic patterns, I think I would have expected less stacking to be going on, changes in traffic patterns and whatnot, maybe less accidents. And it does not feel like that has been the case. I shot a note off to the mayor. I copied the chairman for this committee and Laura, and I asked, is there an opportunity here? I'm curious if there's a reconfigure opportunity, if there's a chance to knock on the doors of the post office or the Fed or something and say, hey, could you guys take a look at this? We've got 10 years of traffic data.
I got your number
Yeah.
there. Keep that in mind. I mean, what do you think?
You know, for one, I don't know, or I feel like it is our job, as I said to Laura today, to yell into the abyss that is the federal government, because the way the law works, I understand, we have zero rights when it comes down to what the post office wants to do and what the Fed wants to do. They say, we're going to be placing our post office here, and this is what your new traffic pattern looks like. My question is, I felt inspired by what happened with the Fabian Bridge. That felt like that was something that was never going to happen, never going to get looked at, but we had a groundswell of people saying, hey, could you please look at this because of accidents? I'm curious if we at least ask the question of the Feds and say, could you please take a look at this? This intersection is on the top 20 list of the most dangerous intersections in our county, and it's not made any better by how poorly designed the exit is there. With the theater being in play now, possibly, I'm curious, is there a chance for a connection? Is there a chance for a reconfiguration of maybe like a pass-through of some kind that maybe the federal government would be interested in entertaining? They can tell us no, they probably will tell us no, but it just seemed like now would be a prime opportunity to at least explore it, or at least ask the question, with the property being in possibly being in play.
I think it'd be the time to bring the county involved in with it, because the county, with what they've been doing on Randall Road with all the yellow light flashing yellow lights and everything that they're working on out on the Miranda Road corridor, I think that that's something, I think you may have some traction to go to the post office, the federal government, if you have the county on board wanting to do something out there. And the fact that it is that high on the list of accident locations within the county, I think that that may be something that could help with that, if you want to try to go after it. And I think it's a long shot, but it's probably worth the fight if we could get something done. Because I'll agree with you, even with the changes with the flashing yellows out there, that's still a horrible intersection to go through.
And there's no stacking that happens when an Avengers film lets out. It's still there. And people are not paying attention to it. If there was a way to get through the post office and get onto the theater property and exit a curb cut somehow, or take the Volk Memorial Tunnel underneath to get to the Portillos, whichever.
Even a right-hand turn lane out of there would help that, I think, immensely.
Yeah, that's all. And I'm just saying, if there's a way that Your Honor could look into that, or at least fire a letter off to somebody or make a phone call.
They asked for it. I know the county's concerned about data center, put up all new lights.
Right.
The idea that they were trying to deal with some of that.
There was an accident, 3 days ago?
Well, I mean,
2 days
not
ago.
accidents, but, they're trying to come up with new safety ways and longer lights and everything else. I'm sure they'd be happy to come in here and talk to us sometime.
I appreciate the opportunity. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's, anytime we could make traffic better out there and any bit safer, I think it's something we should talk about. That's all. Okay. Anybody else? Mike, would you care to make a
Move we adjourn.
Okay.
motion and a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Good night. Thank you.